Washington wastes no time. They go to one of the top coaches that they had in their old conference, the Pac-12, Arizona, and they hire Jedd Fisch to come and be the next head coach of the Huskies, to lead Washington into the Big Ten era. So, Tom, we didn't even have a time to talk a lot of candidates, but in the brief time that we did, we mentioned Jedd Fisch. Just overall thoughts on who they got and what to expect as Washington finds their replacement for Kalen DeBoer.
It's a great hire. I have no idea if it'll work out. Listen, I was a fan of Fisch when he first got to Arizona because we would joke about it, but there was truth to it. The team was bad, but they played hard, which was a good sign for what they were kind of building there and where they were going. And obviously, we saw the last 2 years they kept trending up. This year, they had a very good season. Before Fisch left yesterday, everybody was talking about Arizona as a team that could, possibly win the Big 12. They were going to start the year probably in the top 10 of the polls. So if you're Washington and you're losing DeBoer to Alabama, I think this is a solid hire. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that, he's a good offensive mind. He's been a lot of places. He's been at the NFL. He's been at the college level. He's familiar with everything you want. So, and in this day and age where college is kind of morphing into the NFL, to kind of have somebody with that experience on both sides is probably, a added bonus. I think getting it done quickly is good because at least this way you could try to keep some players who are maybe considering leaving, but also bring some players with you and get them in early enough in time before, school starts in this month. If it hasn't already, I don't even know. Different schools, different places. But I think overall it's a good move that makes a whole hell of a lot of sense.
I agree with Tom. Jedd Fisch has been better than I thought he was going to be at Arizona. If you kind of dig into his stuff, it's kind of a mixed career track. There's some NFL in there, and then he goes and he's with Michigan for 2 years, and then he's at UCLA for 1 year, and then he goes back to the Rams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was at Jacksonville. He was Miami's OC for the Hurricanes for 2 years in the very early part of the 2010s. Then he was the Patriots quarterback coach for 1 year. So the guy has some serious coaching connections as far as having been around people. We really weren't sure what he was going to be as a head coach, but he was better than I thought he would be.
It's funny you mentioned, I looked this up yesterday. He became a coach in 1997. If you don't include the interim stint at UCLA after Mora got fired, where he took over for a couple games there, this will be his 17th job since 1997. He's not exactly a guy who sticks around very long.
It's kind of wild, man. But he's only 47.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of jobs to have by the time you're 47. But specifically for Washington, he's a guy who spent time on the West Coast, so I think he understands sort of the challenges that a West Coast job might bring. I think he's done a pretty good job of recruiting for Arizona. I thought they did a nice job in the portal this year after a lot of their good 2022 players were sort of rated by other bigger programs, including some Pac-12 programs. And
USC got in there and took Dorian Singer.
Exactly. And was it Bars, the D lineman, who had a big year for them in Kyron Bars, maybe?
Something like that, yeah.
Arizona, they played hard. They generally look to be pretty tough to defend. I think Fisch has a good offensive mind, and they definitely let their playmakers make plays. I don't know if it'll work out, but I think you could do a lot worse. That's probably a pretty good hire. I saw him mentioned he was probably the first choice. Leipold at Kansas had said, I'm not going anywhere. I don't know if he was the top choice, but it would have sort of fit the same hiring model, right? Guy that won a lot of the lower level, and you hire him. But I'm fairly high on this, I think.
So, why no Ryan Grubb? He released a lengthy statement. I loved Washington, loved everything about it. But what I did not get a sense of, did you want the job and not get the job? Or are you choosing instead, because reports indicate that he is expected? I haven't seen an official announcement from Alabama, but the expectation within the industry seems to be that Ryan Grubb is going to be Kalen DeBoer's offensive coordinator, which for Alabama, yes, Yes, 100% yes. It's who Nick Saban wanted to hire before Tommy Rees. If he's coming with DeBoer and you're keeping those two together, they've been together since 2007. Don't break up that songwriting combo. They got some hits.
Nick Saban wanted Grubb so damn bad he retired to get him.
Yeah, but for Washington, did you just let a potential great hire go? I didn't. It's sort of just overall thoughts on it. Who else might have been connected to this? Again, I almost give Washington credit for moving quickly and being able to give the next hire, Jedd Fisch, the best chance possible to hold this roster together, at least what's remaining of it.
I mean, I don't know about Grubb as a head coach. I mean, I've never seen him mentioned for head coach opportunities elsewhere. And again, not everybody wants to be a head coach.
Yep.
Some guys just prefer to be coordinators, right? And I'm not saying that is or is not Grubb, but I don't know if he wanted the job or not. Like maybe he did. It's easy to say he did, but unless you're in the meetings, I guess it's hard to know. But if you're Washington, again, you should have superior knowledge here. You should have a decent feel for what this guy might or might not be as a head coach. And so it's kind of on you to make the right call, and you better make the right call.
Also, something that could have possibly been at play here is whether or not Grubb wanted the job. If you're Washington, you just got to the title game, your head coach left, you're leaving for a new conference. This is a very kind of tricky situation that you have to deal with. You've got players entering the NFL draft. Maybe you're more comfortable hiring somebody who you know that even if he doesn't have a ton of head coaching experience, has head coaching experience, because Jedd Fisch has been doing this for the last few years at Arizona instead of going the coordinator route. Maybe you view that as a riskier option, even if his offense is very good. You want somebody who's more established in running a program right now. So that could have played a factor too.
That's a good point too. Like if you're Ryan Grubb, you turned down Alabama this last year to stay at Washington because you realized what you had. Now you should also realize what you don't have, which is almost all of your offense. I think both tackles have declared for the NFL draft. Kalepo, who's one of the better guards in the sport, is in the transfer portal. All three receivers are gone. Penix is gone. Will Rogers, the transfer quarterback they took from Mississippi State, is also gone. Not everybody in the portal is guaranteed to be gone. They could all come back if they wanted to. And certainly with Jedd Fisch's offense, maybe they would decide to come back. But if you're Ryan Grubb and you're reading the room, your stock as a coordinator is going to go down next year if you stay at Washington, even as the head coach, right? Like it's just Washington's going to have a massive drop off in offense unless they just portal the heck out of this thing. Because it was one of the better offenses we've seen in a couple of years.
Yeah, once they bring in Fafita and McMillan, they'll probably be just fine.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's stay right there with Washington, because it does seem like, looking back at the statement, it does seem like Grubb wanted it. He did not get the job. I'm going to say my takeaway from where I'm sitting, great news for Alabama. I don't know why we are only going to know based on how Jedd Fisch performs as the head coach of the Washington Huskies, whether or not it was the right decision. And there's a lot of variables there, including this one right here. How are we looking in terms of the Washington roster and the operation? Because from the quarterback position, you had just brought Will Rogers in so that he was on the sideline in uniform. And as soon as Kalen DeBoer leaves, boom, he's in the transfer portal. But there's a lot more going on here. When you have 9 sixth-year seniors, you know what that means? They're all gone. When you have a bunch of fifth-year seniors, a bunch of them are going to be gone too. So in addition to the underclassmen declaration of all 3 of our wide receivers, a lot of work, right? From a roster building standpoint, is Washington ready? Do they have the guns ready to go to be able to figure out how to make this thing happen before the fall?
When I did my January 5th, way too early top 25, just spitballing it on Twitter, I did not have Washington in there because I had basically all the good players as going pro, just as a default setting for my little projection model, right? And so at that point, Washington did not profile as a top 25 team. And I immediately regretted that, actually, as some of their fans let me know who was probably going to return and who they might bring in. Now, this was, of course, before DeBoer left Washington to take the Alabama job. Barring some miracles in the transfer portal, I have a hard time seeing Washington being a top 6 team in the Big Ten next year.
I was like 6th or 7th. We gotta put them in the top half of this 18-team behemoth. But I really have a hard time sliding them ahead of some of those teams that fill out our no doubt top 5.
Agreed. Again, we don't know what they will do in the portal. We'll see. Austin Mack, their second-year quarterback, also hit the portal.
Too.
So,
yep.
Does Washington have any scholarship quarterbacks right now?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I don't think they do at the moment.
That's a crazy sentence to say.
Didn't Heward left earlier too, right?
Yeah, he's at Cal Davis, I think.
Yeah,
UC Davis. So they throw the ball around there a lot, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I had Jordan McLeod. I was looking through the transfer portal, and I was like, who has not landed somewhere? One of them is Will Rogers, who obviously just left, and he could stay, right? I mean, he might have just thrown his name in the portal, go ahead and get it in there. He could end up sitting down with Jedd Fisch, and then they say, sure. Again, Jedd Fisch has a quarterback that it very much could be the option and the answer to our question here. I had Jordan McLeod, former James Madison quarterback, as sort of the last chess piece. And again, we'll get to Cam Ward here in just a little bit, but I don't know what else is out there in terms of the transfer marketplace.
Jaden DeLora.
I find it hard to expect that since Jaden DeLora lost his starting job under Jedd Fisch's watch, that we're going to see him turn around and be Washington's next.
Well, from everything I've heard, Jaden DeLora handled that really well. Like, he kind of understood once Fafita got in there and started playing that it was a situation where it's like, bro, we can't go back to you. Look at this kid. But I mean, that's the thing. I mentioned it jokingly, but there is a very real chance that Washington's quarterback will be Noah Fafita. And there's a very real chance that Teteroa McMillan will also be one of their top receivers. That's the situation that we're living with now with the transfer portal. When a coach leaves, players have the chance to leave. Players can follow the coach to the new job. Now, I'm not saying they're going to. Maybe Fafita and McMillan are happy at Arizona and want to stay there and see who the coach is, what happens there. But there's a very good shot that is going to be the case.
I mean, we don't know exactly what Arizona's NIL situation will be. It's pretty clear Washington can pay a lot more money to coaches than Arizona can. Can they also do the same with NIL?
Probably.
Montlake Futures. Let's go. You get on. Yeah, that's the name of their NIL operation. And the way that talking to Kalen DeBoer about it, he praised the growth that they had over the last 1 year. Says they'd learned a lot and they'd improved a lot, made a lot of good connections in that community. The alumni base does have some people that can cut some checks that can help you out. But he said he also very quickly followed up that praise with, now are we where we need to be? No. Do we need to keep pedal to the metal? Yes. He was happy that the university and the NIL operation, that they had gotten everything organized and were moving in the right direction. But right now it seems like a big time to make sure that they can continue to build on that momentum and not let it slide or fade away just with the absence of Kalen DeBoer. So it'll be an important couple months of fundraising, I think, for Washington football on the NIL side.